Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I love our music. So I'm always like dancing to it while the intro plays. Hello, guys. Welcome back to another short, or what are we calling them? Snack size episode. We've been gone
There
a
you go.
minute. I've forgotten everything. And this week is Laura's turn. Laura, what are you telling us about today?
We are going to talk about Frances Howard Carr. She's a very fancy lady.
Is she
Um,
good? I
yes.
just love a good fancy lady. As
I
long as she's
mean,
weird. Is she weird?
things happen. Let's just
There
keep it
are
at that.
occurrences.
So
All
this
right.
one is for you because I know how much you love these
Fancy
English
ladies.
royal fancy ladies. All right.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm
All
going to
right.
settle on back and you take it away.
All right, so this was an article from headstuff.org. Okay. The popular history of Tudor England is all about the royal family.
Oh my God. I already,
I knew
you
you
fucking
would.
had me at Tudor England. Oh my God. Okay.
All right. The dour, tight-fisted Henry VII, the laughing, murderous Henry VIII, the boy King Edward, the bloody-handed Mary, and the glorious asexual Elizabeth. Of course, that's barely scratching the surface of affairs. The real
Mm-hmm.
power struggles in the court were the families struggling for a place in the new nobility. The War of the Roses had wiped out most of a generation of the British upper class, and there were a lot of prizes up for grabs. The most famous of these was the Boleyn family of Norfolk, whose ascent up the ranks was bloodily cut short with the execution of Anne and George Boleyn.
Yep.
Less prominent but equally unfortunate were the Dudleys,
Ah,
who
yes.
very nearly took off over the throne of England with the ascension of Lady Jane Grey. The eventual end of the House of Tudor didn't put an end to these dynastic struggles, and under James Stuart, the families continued unabated. One such family were the Howards. So the Howards had been related to and allied with the Boleyns a generation earlier, and had
Yes.
even put their own queen on the throne next to Henry VIII. Unfortunately for them, Catherine Howard's previous indiscretions turned out to be a lethal liability, and she met the same fate as her cousin Anne.
Yes.
Her immediate relatives fell from favor, though they managed to avoid the block. Her cousin Thomas was later a victim of Henry's paranoia during his final days and was executed for having a treasonous coat of arms. I hate when that
Oh,
happens.
wow. I better check mine. Make sure it's not, make sure it's above board.
His son Thomas was equally unfortunate as he became involved in a plot to put Mary, Queen of Scots, on the throne and lost his head for it. Lots of lots of
Yes,
beheadings going around.
there are a lot of skulls in the River Thames.
Right. The next Howard heir was also named Thomas, and he was only 11 years old when his father died. He managed to redeem the family name through his naval service, being knighted for his efforts against the Spanish Armada. He also increased the family fortune by marrying Catherine Knivet, a young heiress who was already a widow at the age of 16. The couple had 14 children. 14,
Fuck off.
including a girl named Frances, who was born on the 31st of May, 1590. So the
Did they
Howards,
all survive?
it doesn't
I
say.
have so
I
many
don't know.
questions about this. Oh my god. Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Wow, 14. Jesus.
Wait. Hold
You
on.
lose your place?
No, something happened with my. I have to look at the. Sorry. I lost my. Yes, I guess I lost my place. Hold on. I need a minute. Oh no, momento. Something happened with my copy and it like got messed up. Okay.
Okay.
All
I
right.
was like, I could pause
Keeping it
it.
real.
Okay.
All right. As a daughter of the Howard family, Frances Howard's role early in her life was to be married off to the family's advantage. She was raised to suit this aim, and at the age of 14, she was married to the 13-year-old Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex. His
Ah,
father
she
had
was a
been
cougar.
executed
Gotcha.
in 1601 for treason, then the title had been stripped from the family, but the newly crowned King James had restored it. While it was not unknown at the time for such marriages to be consummated, Henry VII's mother was only 13 when he was conceived. It was generally considered a bad idea as people were well aware of the health risks of pregnancy at that young age, so the pair were kept separate. Robert was sent off on a tour of Europe, while Francis was sent to court. It was there that all the trouble started. So Robert Carr, or Kerr, and Thomas Overbury, these fucking super over the top English names, met in Edinburgh in 1601. At the time, Carr was aged 14 and was a page to the Earl of Dunbar, while
Okay.
Overbury was around 20 and was on holiday from studying law in London. The pair were both of the same class, the landed but not noble gentry, and they stuck up a friendship. When Carr headed to London 4 or 5 years later, the friendship was renewed. By this time, Overbury had managed to secure a small position at court, but he soon realized that the charismatic, though less intelligent Carr was likely to prove far more successful, so he positioned himself as the young man's mentor, a decision which paid off in 1606 when Carr quite literally had a lucky break. The
And
break.
Carr, this is a. I got sorry, I got confused. A a guy. You're talking about a boy, a guy, right?
So a different guy, yeah.
Henry,
Robert Carr.
Robert, Robert. Oh,
Okay.
Robert.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
okay.
right
I'm
now,
caught.
Miss Howard she's in court and just chilling. So then these guys like are friends. One of them happens to get onto the court,
Okay, small little
and
court.
yeah, and then so he decides, hey, my friend is really charming. I'm gonna get him over there because I think he'll do really well, and
Gotcha.
that'll help
Okay, I'm
me.
caught up now.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. So, um, so Carr breaks his leg. Um, while competing in a jousting tournament observed by the 40-year-old king himself. So naturally, the king went to visit the recovering sportsman, and when he did so, he was so infatuated with that he immediately took over nursing the young man back to health personally.
The king
So
did.
this is King James,
Wow. All right.
King James Bible, but the big homo. Um, yes, the same one and the same. Okay,
Oh my God, I love King James, the big homo.
he is. It's also a King James Bible.
Yes.
Same guy. So at the time, homosexuality was a crime, but not one that anyone would have dared to accuse the king, even indirectly of. As such, his affairs with his favorites were an open secret. Um, on the other hand, historians since then have also often wished to avoid speaking of it, leading to an unspoken gap in their accounts. Even to this day, the euphemistic language of the time persists. As such, they will baldly state that King James sat by Carr's bedside and taught him Latin, then knighted him and gifted him with the confiscated estates of the executed Sir Walter Raleigh, but not give any reason for it beyond him being a favorite. Of course, with no direct evidence of any physical relationship between the two, that could be all there was to it. So, decide for yourself. But anyway.
That's nuts.
Right.
That's nuts.
So they're BFFs and roommates, if you will. Well, so Carr is ascending
Special
the ranks,
friends.
right? Right. So this Mr. Carr is obviously a star at court, and the Mr. Overbury guy is like, riding his coattails. So he soon became acquainted with Lady Frances Howard Devereux, by now
Okay, here we
a
go.
17-year-old lady in waiting. Right.
Oh,
Just
she's
coming
she's
back around again.
she's coming back
Right.
around again.
So the two soon begin an affair, though once again, quite how physical it was is open for debate. What is certain is that when Robert Devereux returned from the continent, he and Frances did not have a physical relationship. So, as Robert himself would later admit, though he did have other lovers, he was entirely unable to perform with his wife. This may have been down as much to her attitude. She publicly insulted him, barricaded herself in her room, and only consented to let him attempt to have sex with her when he made an appeal to her father to reason with him. So it wasn't really a huge surprise to anyone when she began talking about an annulment.
Oh my God.
So she's
It's
running away
always
from her
these
husband,
bitchy, shitty
basically.
women that like get the husbands and
Right. So she doesn't want to have anything to do with her betrothed husband that she's been married to since she was like 12.
Sure.
So she's literally running away from him. And meanwhile, has this big old crush on the king's boyfriend. So um, his like mentor Overbury
Sure.
um, was disapproving enough about the pair's relationship, but he was horrified when Carr began discussing marriage. So he saw Francis as a dangerous influence, nowhere near prestigious enough and far too strong willed. More to the point, he knew there'd be no place for him if Carr became a tool of the Howard family.
Oh,
So, in an attempt to reason with his friend, he wrote a poem, as one does, extolling the virtues of an ideal wife, clearly implying that Francis had none of them. So, it failed to convince Carr, but it did earn Overbury the bitter, um, resentment of Francis.
sure.
So, unfortunately for Mr. Overbury, um, the death of a Robert Cecil, the Earl of Salisbury, as in steak, in 1611 opened up a power vacuum in the
Earl of
court.
Salisbury.
The Earl of
Salisbury
Salisbury's steak.
steak. Okay.
Um, so it opened up a power vacuum in the court that her family was like ready to get on, right?
Sure.
So he had been both Lord High Treasurer and Secretary of State, though his influence had like waned towards his death. In fact, it had been Carr's influence that had derailed Cecil's last great project. So when Thomas Howard, by now Earl of Suffolk and one of the king's principal counselors, wanted to take over Cecil's position, his daughter's affair with Carr was a key part of his plans.
Uh-oh.
There was only the small inconvenience of her husband.
They get in the way.
I've heard.
They just get in the way when you're trying to, be a star at court.
I mean, just trying to have fun.
I
She's only
mean,
17. I mean,
she
all right.
better find somebody soon if she's going to have 14 babies like her mom did.
I
She's getting
mean,
older.
right. She should have already had 3.
By now, yeah.
So all right. So on the 17th of May, 1613, Thomas and her brother Henry filed a suit on Frances's behalf for the annulment of her marriage. So the grounds were the lack of consummation of the marriage, something which neither side disputed.
Okay.
And usually, though, it admitted that Devereux was not totally impotent and said that he was able to perform with other women, just not with Frances. And this
Just not with women yelling at
is
him and
not,
calling him.
yeah, like with the one that's running away and barricading herself away.
Right. While calling him a dumb, lazy asshole.
I mean, some dudes like that.
Some dudes do.
Some pay extra. So
They-
this led to much, chin wagging and mockery, which Devereux became infamous for countering by displaying his erection to anyone who would look at it.
Are you serious?
I am not lying.
Oh, so you didn't make that up. That's literally what happened.
Literally in the article. Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh my God. This story is the best already. I swear to God, I can do it. Here, look at my penis.
It totally works, just not for her.
Look, it works. Yeah, just not for her. She walked in and it goes, eh. This is hysterical. Okay, sorry.
All right. So, as for Frances, she underwent an examination to prove her virginity, because there were strong rumors that she substituted another woman for this due to her activity with Carr. But naturally, all of this was food and drink to the poets and scandalmongers of London, who soon decided that Frances had used witchcraft to render Devereux impotent.
Also, their names were Carrie and Laura.
Right. So this was also considered a possibility by the judges, though they decided there was no evidence of it. So coincidentally, around the same time, Frances had a folk healer named Cunning Mary arrested on the grounds that Mary had stolen one of her rings. Mary claimed that the ring had been a payment for using witchcraft to kill Essex, and that she had then refused to do so. However, the judge sided with Frances.
What year is this?
Like 1590.
I mean, no, I was like, this sounds a lot like the crap that was going on in the French court too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
Stupid.
So,
Okay.
also, by the way, Frances is like super hot for the times, okay?
Oh, okay.
Um, because obviously, like, nobody's gonna care if she's ugly. Like, there's a lot of work. So,
True. Yeah,
despite
she
the
doesn't even have a
grounds,
sparkling personality to fall
right?
back on.
Just doesn't seem like it. So, despite the grounds, the king was reluctant to destabilize the court by granting the annulment. So, and that was largely due to um, Overbury calling in every favor and marker at his disposal to try to prevent his friend making what he thought was a terrible mistake.
Oh
So,
God, this hanger
unfortunately
on.
for him, Carr was less than grateful for the interference, and he helped the Howards outmaneuver Overbury. They
Okay.
arranged for the king to offer him a post as ambassador to Russia, a notable honor, but one which would take him well out of the court.
Well out of the course.
Mm. So they tried to ship
How about
this
you go to
off.
Russia?
You know what I heard is really fun?
It's beautiful this time of year. You should go.
I think Catherine Great is coming around soon. I don't know, but you'll like it.
Hi,
Actually,
Rasputin.
later, but Overbury decided to decline the post, but unfortunately for him, the king took extreme offense at this and had Overbury imprisoned in the Tower of London.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
5 months later, he fell ill and died. Less than 2 weeks after that, the king approved the annulment and Carr married Frances Howard. So they win.
Wow. Sounds like Diddy was involved.
Right. A lot of drama. So,
Everybody's dropping over from pneumonia.
right. So 2 years later, the fickle king's affections had moved on. Carr had received an earldom, but now he had been replaced by George Villiers. Around this time, perhaps in order to make sure Carr was taken out of the picture, rumors about Overbury's death, which had been circulating for quite a while, became a lot more prominent in the court. The king was forced to order an investigation. At the time, the Attorney General was Francis Bacon, and he and Edward Coke headed the inquiry. So, based on a letter sent by Gervase Els, the governor of the prison, they concluded there had been attempts made to poison Overbury through his food.
Okay.
And when that had failed, then the actual cause of death had been an enema laced with sulfuric acid. I wish I could make
Oh
this
my
stuff up,
God.
but I'm not. So, the initial person implicated in the murder was Robert Weston. Um, Els had said that he had caught Weston trying to poison the prisoner and had prevented it, but had then later discovered that Weston had arranged the fatal enema.
Who comes up with this shit?
I
I mean, I
don't
get the
know.
rack, like the what
Right.
was some of that stuff we saw when we went to the Tower of London? Like there was
Yeah.
that metal thing that went over your head and then like a
Oh, yeah.
piece that went in your mouth. I can't remember what it was
Isn't that
called, but
cool?
this is really fucked up. Oh my God. The idea. Ugh.
Right. Another reason I picked this story because it's just wild.
I'm
And it's
telling you,
so
this is
crazy.
the fucking best. I
All right.
swear I love it already.
Okay. So, on that evidence, Weston was convicted and executed, though he did not implicate anyone else. So the next thread was the source of the poison, which turned out to be a woman named Anne Turner. Anne was the widow of a physician and the madam of two brothels, known to be frequented by many at court.
Wow.
She was a wealthy and well connected woman who had once been a servant of Francis Carr. Another thread in the connections to the two. So,
Wow. Okay.
unfortunately for her, a search of her premises turned up a stash that contained both pornography and heretical materials, and which was enough evidence for a court at the time to convict anyone of anything. Rather than face the excruciating death of a heretic, she confessed to her part in the murder and gave up her source for the poison. As a result, she was only hanged.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Well, at least she
they went
wasn't given the enema.
right. They went light on her.
Yeah, they'll just
Um,
hang her.
right.
God.
So Anne had gotten the poison from an apothecary named James Franklin, and he gave the prosecutors what they had been looking for, a way to tie the poisoning to the cars.
Ah,
He gave evidence that Els had been involved in organizing the poisoning and that Francis Carr had paid him to do it. Despite this being contradicted by the letters Els had sent, the prosecutors decided not to enter the letters into evidence, and so the jailer was executed alongside the apothecary.
what the fuck is
They just kill everybody.
everybody?
So, this
Wow.
level of
All
legal
right.
malpractice was pretty normal for the justice of the day, where
Sure.
trials like this were generally decided where the king wished rather than on the basis of the evidence.
Right. Of course.
Right. So, Francis and Carr were arrested and imprisoned in the Tower of London, our favorite place.
Yep.
Francis confessed almost immediately, but her husband was more stubborn. So,
Yep.
whether she was actually guilty or not is hard to tell with the waters so muddied by the biased prosecution. But most historians agree that she was involved in the plot at least. So
Oh my god.
her husband is more controversial. So, regardless of his guilt, he was allegedly urged to plead guilty in return for a guarantee of clemency by the king. It's speculated this was because the king himself had also been involved in killing Overbury, or possibly that the queen, who hated him for an insult he had been overheard making, had actually arranged the crime.
Oh my god.
So supposedly they were in on it. So
Everybody's in cahoots.
seriously, so Carr refused to give in, but the result was the same. He and Francis were both found guilty. Um, so Francis is often described as seeming faint during her trial, but one often omitted detail that she was very pregnant at the time. So she gave birth
Oh,
to a daughter, Anne, in December 1615, while she was in the Tower of London under sentence of death. It
nice.
wasn't until April that the sentence was officially commuted to imprisonment.
Mm.
Um, the king's decision provoked outrage among both the enemies of the Carr and the Howards and among the general public. Um, the previous witchcraft allegations against Frances had been resurrected, and she had become a figure of hatred, the evil woman.
Sure.
So her father Thomas's position was similarly weakened, and in 1618 he was suspended from his post as Lord High Treasurer over allegations that his wife, her mother, had been taking bribes. Um, as if to add insult to the injury, Catherine contracted smallpox while they were waiting trial, and her face was badly scarred. So the pair
You
were found guilty. Thomas was forced to appeal to the enemies who had outmaneuvered him for clemency, and by granting it, they broke the political power of the Howards. So
good
Frances
God.
was released from the tower in 1622, and her husband was released in 1624, and they lived in relative obscurity for the rest of their lives, as did her father. So they had retained their titles, as
Wow.
though they had no other children. The earldom of Somerset died with Robert Carr. Frances died at the young age of 42. She didn't live to see her daughter Anne get married to the heir of the Earl of Bedford. Um,
Wow.
but her reputation did haunt the couple, however, as the young man's father did oppose the match because of both Frances's and because Anne had been born in the tower.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Hmm. So it took the intervention of the king to persuade him to relent, and went on to have several children. And through her, many of Frances's descendants are still part of the British aristocracy today.
Really?
Hmm.
Wow.
So, despite this, she remains an infamous figure in English history, um, as a
Hmm.
delicious villain for the Victorian historians, who found great glee in painting a strong minded woman as a dastardly villain.
Yeah.
So, did she arrange for him to be killed? Maybe, but
She
history
sounds a
has
lot
already
like
passed
Anne
judgment.
Boleyn. She was like that too.
That was
Like,
like her cousin.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard were cousins, but she does. She sounds a lot like Anne Boleyn, like very
mm,
headstrong,
mm.
very like still, well, Anne Boleyn was charming. It doesn't sound like this woman was very charming.
Well, supposedly she was very pretty, and
Mm, that'll get you places for sure.
I mean, yeah, she must have had
Yeah.
something. She had
She must have
something,
had something.
but
Oh,
yeah, just a. I mean, She was accused of
Love
being a
it.
witch, a murderer.
I swear to that was a lot of scheming and
There
stuff
was. I hope
just
it was
to like,
followable. There's a lot of people in there, but
yeah, that was a good one, Laura. I love
I'm
it
glad you liked it.
so much. I love it so much. Um,
I know how
you had
much you
said
love
something
the
and I was
English
like, I've got to
history.
look into that. Huh?
I know how much you love the royals,
God, I do.
especially that era.
I do. I absolutely do. Um, wow, that was really good. Yeah, guys, if you are, you want to know all of the salacious details of Henry VIII and his many wives, Showtime had a show. The Tudors was on Showtime, and I think it was like 6 seasons. It's really good. It's really good.
I watched it.
Um, it's highly dramatic. There's a lot of gratuitous sex scenes in it, but um, I'm a big fan of Jonathan Rhys Meyers, so uh, um, yeah, it's a good. So check it out. It's on Showtime. I think you can stream it. I believe it's excellent. Also, the show Versailles. That's an excellent show as well. I think that one only lasted 3 seasons though, but that's a really good one too. Um, yeah, Laura, that's going to be hard to top. I'm thinking about my episode for next week, and I'm like, ooh, I think I need a better one. That was so good. That
I'm
was
glad
so
you
good.
enjoyed it. It's something I came across her and I was like, oh, Carrie, if she doesn't know this already, she'd really like it. So
No idea. Now I have to research the Howards. I had no idea this was such a good one.
and these people were also nuts, just
Dude, just
crazy.
to be at court and like
Mhm.
being somebody important at court when as clearly history shows one wrong move and you were so I don't know. Yeah. I love it
Mm.
though. It's so dramatic.
It
It's
really is.
it's a lot of fun, probably wasn't for them at the time, but for us
Mm.
here in 2024, it's a wild ride. All right. Well, I'm up next week and I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board with my story. So hope you guys are having a great week. Sorry we took a week off. There were stuff and things. But we're back on track and my story is next week. So you know what we say, stay safe out there because you never know who
Or what royal?
is giving you a sulfuric acid enema.
No!
Ah, all right. Bye guys. Watch those murder attempts. Jesus Christ.
I mean, that's really specific.
That's very specific. Bye guys. We'll see you next week.